Coming up on show 918, Tesla launches their domestic energy plan for home customers. Stick around, I'll tell you more. Oh, it's a busy day on the podcast today. Lots of news to get through today. We are talking about an electric Ram from Fiat Chrysler, how China are targeting 50% EV sales, and Mini to go electrified as an all-electric brand. Those stories and more coming up on the show. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. My name is Martin Lee. I've been through every EV story in the past 24 hours and whittled it down to the stuff you just need to know about to save you time. I made a whole show about the Hummer EV last week, by the way. If you're interested, go check it out. And then I felt slightly duped when I found out that the 5-minute commercial they aired, which was their version of the unveiling, I thought there'd be a live stream, the car would be on stage. No, it was just a pre-packaged commercial of the Hummer, driving down the side of mountains. Looked spectacular. I was really impressed. And it turns out that that vehicle was CGI generated. And I found out that's because of all the things they were doing with the truck, the stunts weren't actually real. I tell you what, though, it was very impressive. Whoever got the project to do that, somewhat better than my skills in paint in Windows. I mean, it looked real. It looked like a film. So amazing to think that that wasn't actually a real vehicle. And now a series of videos of it YouTube where YouTubers and influencers have been invited to go and see a Hummer for real. I wonder if some of the criticism that they got last week, maybe it stung a little bit. There is actually a version of the Hummer EV that they have built, and although it's a pre-production version, it's not what you would call fully functional. However, these YouTubers have been uploading their videos and posting that the actual car does exist. Now, this version of the Hummer EV isn't quick. In fact, it sort of crawled around the hangar that it was driving in. There'll be no 0 to 60 runs because it looked like it was going pretty slowly, but it was moving under its own power, even if all of the software on the screens inside were running in demo mode. In other words, it was just a loop or an animation or something. So clearly they've got so much work to do, but a nice little update that from last week thinking that, wow, it's almost ready, to then, oh, it's a computer, to, oh, you know what, they have actually built one. So good luck to the team there. Talking of trucks, the most high-profile truck may be coming soon from Tesla, the Cybertruck, but not far behind it is the Rivian, the R1T. There's the SUV as well, the R1S, getting a fair amount of publicity. And of course, recently on the podcast, we made a whole show about the Hummer, and we were talking about the Lordstown Motors truck as well, the Ford F-150. They're all coming. We talked about Fiat Chrysler recently on the podcast as well, with the new small city car, the little dinky Fiat 500 electric that looks so cute. But let's talk about a bigger car from Fiat Chrysler. Let's talk about an all-electric pickup truck coming from the Fiat Chrysler stable. They're going to release an electric one under the Ram brand. No details known yet about this, or even how far along the production schedule it is, not even any specs. And when the car will be made and where it will be made, we just don't know. And we don't also know whether it will be full electric, because if you read the quotes very carefully, senior management described it as electrified. Now, that is a warning sign that I've seen over the many years that I've been doing this, because it probably means a plug-in hybrid. If it's full electric, they would have said electric and shouted it from the rooftops, but they called it electrified. So I'm wondering whether it's got an engine inside it. One thing's for sure, in the very lucrative American market for trucks, if you're not making an EV truck, then you are simply not in the game. When they said they were making an electrified version of the Ram, you have to wonder why they didn't say pure electric. Be very careful when they say electrified. I've often praised the Peugeot Citroën group, PSA group, on this podcast for their move to all-electric cars over the last 12 months, really. And the tech that they have got is really solid. Worth pointing out that FCA, Fiat Chrysler, and Peugeot and PSA are merging, which of course will give Fiat Chrysler access to all of that wealth of electric knowledge. So it could mean that an all-electric Ram does get to the market quicker, because they've got a bit of a head start than they would if they did it on their own. Well, if we're going to talk about Fiat Chrysler on the podcast, a quick mention for their Q3 earnings. Recovering from the virus, they made a net profit in the third quarter of $1.4 billion. Don't get me wrong, some bits of the company that aren't doing very well. Looking at you, Maserati. They said on the earnings call that their merger with PSA is on track. It'll be done by March next year. The combined company will be the fourth biggest automaker in the world, and any company, frankly, that has Jeep in their stable has a head start because it is wildly popular. How long before we see more electric talk around the Jeep brand? I wish it would be sooner. I suspect it will be later. Do not mess with the goose that lays the golden egg. If you want to compare it to Ford, well, Ford is basically the F-Series. In fact, it's the F-150. And if you want to talk about Fiat Chrysler, it's the Jeep brand. It's where all of the money comes from to keep all the other bits going. Hey, we've mentioned Ford, another automaker doing their financial results today. Ford forecasting a profit for the year. The new CEO is in place, turning around an $11 billion restructuring plan. Profit for the quarter, $3.6 billion. I love stories like this because it means they're in a stronger position to invest in electric technology. Having recovered from the virus that should be hopefully in the rearview mirror now, but I don't know, it's going up here in Europe and in the UK, and there's more infections and talk of lockdown. France went into lockdown. So, I don't know, maybe the virus hasn't gone yet until we get a vaccine, but hopefully everyone's dealing with it better than they did earlier this year when lockdown pretty much everywhere meant that nobody was buying anything. However, full year pre-tax profits of around $1 billion should be on the cards because Ford are pulling it back. And what about electric cars from Ford? On the earnings call, they said that the electric F-150 is on its way and the electric transit van a key part of the company's future, and moving their Lincoln brand all-electric and commercial vehicles as well from Ford. So moving on, yesterday on the podcast I told you about Kia and their plans to have a fifth of their sales to be purely electric cars by 2025, but then only a quarter of them by the end of the decade. Well, even if that was a straight line, it would be more than that, but it's going to be exponential, so I couldn't quite work out. Interesting comment actually on my YouTube channel from someone that said, look, if they talk up EVs too much, no one's going to buy their combustion cars, investors get scared about R&D money, so actually maybe they were sandbagging and playing it down. I see that point. I like it. I could kind of get on board with that, actually, because it would make sense that maybe they do secretly think that they're going to be selling a lot more EVs, but it's not worth saying it. I don't know. It probably twisted logic somewhere in there as well, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that. So I was thinking to myself, look, how does that compare to other things? Well, let's look at China. China plans by the middle of the decade, 2025, they want to have 20% of all new car sales electric, which matches the Kia number. So if the South Korean car maker Kia was a country, they'd be in line. I just thought it was interesting. It was the same number. So a fifth of all new car sales to be all electric by 2025 in China is their target. We know that when they set their sights on something, they're going to achieve it. And actually, they'll be doing 50% of all electric cars by 2030. 95% of what they call NEVs, new energy vehicles, they say that 95% of them will have a plug. In other words, China doesn't see any place for hybrid. Kind of interesting. I mean, obviously I would agree. I want to see cars with plug sockets on because that's the only way to get clean green electrons into them. So there you go. Let's talk about Mercedes-Benz investing in Aston Martin. What does it mean for electric cars? Aston Martin undergoing a mini revival at the moment with new owners and a return to Formula One as the headline sponsor / team name, actually, of the team. Formerly known as Force India and currently Racing Point, they become Aston Martin next year. They've even signed Ferrari world champion Sebastian Vettel to drive for them next year. Mercedes-Benz confirming that they're taking a 20% stake in Aston Martin, up from 2.6%. Mercedes-Benz, as part of the agreement, are supplying their next generation electric powertrain technology. And that makes sense that Mercedes-Benz have invested heavily in their EQ brand and their tech. And with Aston Martin, both as something they're investing in, but also a customer, a way of recouping some of that R&D cost. The same way that VW are licensing their ID platform to the MEB platform to Ford, for instance, for the Ford's European cars. Well, Aston and Merc have been in bed together for the last 7 years, and this marks a ratcheting up of their partnership. However, it doesn't mean that Aston is going all electric. Actually, maybe the reverse. In the press release announcing these details, Aston did confirm that the Rapide E, which had been previewed, was due to be launching, will now not be happening. That is a blow. We first saw the Rapide E back in April 2019. They were going to make 155 units of them, and that appears on the back burner, if not completely cancelled, after years of development on an 800-volt powertrain. Not happening now, as Aston Martin has faced incredible financial headwinds over recent years. They can't be blamed entirely for scrapping the investment and wanting to focus on things they know will make money in the combustion side. But my thoughts on this, and I think you and I probably think the same, that everyone's going to have to make the move to electric cars sooner or later. Probably sooner. And actually, if they're doing some restructuring, if they're taking in new investment from Mercedes-Benz, if they're going to go through a painful period, make this the painful period. If they're going to get if all car makers are going to get a bloody nose by moving to electric, because they've got factories and supply chain set up to make combustion cars, and they've been doing it for many years. They're really good at making engines. If they're going to have to change to electric, get it done. Get it done sooner rather than later and get match fit. But they're not focusing on things like their V6 motors alongside the Mercedes-Benz technology, which I imagine might be their plug-in. So I imagine, I don't know, I'm speculating, Aston Martin's future could be they stick with the big engines, but also add a layer of Mercedes-Benz plug-in technology with a bit of battery, motor, stuff like that. Would probably make sense for Aston, even though it's not what I would be doing, but it's not my money that I'm spending, so good luck to them. Moving on, Consumer Reports have done a test drive of driver assistance systems, and their conclusion, get ready for this, was that Tesla's technology, known as autopilot or full self-driving, comes, and I quote, a distant second behind GM's solution. GM call their technology Super Cruise. Ford call it Copilot, Audi call it Presense. All of this is driver assistance systems. Yes, don't hate me. Even Tesla's full self-driving is at best advanced driver assistance. It says you must watch the road at all times, and therefore let's not call it autonomy. There are driver assistance all over the place, driver assistance systems all over the place, but all of them say you must pay constant attention to the road. Now, GM's Super Cruise works by mapping 200,000 miles of highways in the US and Canada, whereas Tesla say their solution is superior because they don't require maps. You can be offline, and the cameras and the radar will do all the heavy lifting. Turns out Consumer Reports rated Super Cruise highly because of the safety. They have driver-facing infrared cameras which are able to monitor the driver's attention, and also they see that as a far superior solution than Tesla simply wanting to put your hand on the wheel. There'll be 22 vehicles over the next 3 years coming from that company with GM's Super Cruise technology. The autopilot system that Consumer Reports tested, I must add, was not the latest, because this has been going on for a period of time, and beta version of the full rewrite of self-driving was only out last week, so it's impossible. They couldn't have done it. It doesn't say either way, but they couldn't have been using the latest one, which of course is better. But Consumer Reports have previously said that full self-driving is a lie because of the word full in the title. Separate Super Cruise technology includes that driver-facing camera. Like I mentioned, it's on the steering column, and it follows the driver's eyes to ensure that if their vision goes down to look at their mobile phone, the system nags you and ensures that your attention is put back on the road. Super Cruise is a subscription product. It costs $25 a month or $15 a month if you bundle it with your OnStar subscription. The mapping, they say, is constantly being improved and expanded. I've used neither. Neither the latest beta version of Full Self-Driving or GM's Super Cruise, but I'm sure that fans of each technology will have an opinion on that. Interestingly, actually, on the YouTube comments, I was talking about this recently and had a really just a really interesting conversation with somebody in the comments, which I love because the comment section of YouTube, anywhere, the internet, is a pretty terrible place to exist. But for some reason, the comments on this channel, just even people that disagree, are just nice and polite and respectful. So please keep it up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe intelligent grown-ups listen to this podcast. That wouldn't be like the internet. The user catalytic converter said, "You've always been quite dismissive of how close we are to full self-driving, claiming we're nowhere near. I never thought you fully grasped what happened about the huge amount of data and how quickly Tesla's AI can learn. Full self-driving is coming, and sooner than people think." So that's interesting. My kind of, my take, well, I won't read you the whole conversation, but my reply and then their reply was basically like, my issue is around the use of the word full self-driving. It's not and won't be for a very long time, because edge cases and corner cases are mind-numbingly hard to fix, but it's very hard to make that critique of the system without people becoming enraged on the internet and think that you are criticising it all. So like I say, it's nice that I have people who can comment and say, hey, we hear you say nice things about Tesla, but we think that you're wrong about how long it'll take. I just think it's going to take longer than Elon promises, for years. Every year. We're saying, we're going to drive across the country. It didn't happen this year. Next year. Didn't happen that year. Next year. Last year, in 2019, Elon promised robo-taxis by the end of 2020. I can't move for robo-taxis around here. Anyway, I jest. I joke. Don't take the bait. I'm only joking. Let's move on. And Minis are electrifying. Mini have confirmed plans for half of all of their cars sold to be purely electric, and they did specify this. By 2025 and by 2030, Mini will be an all-electric brand. Combustion engines will still be on sale until the end of the decade, but decreasingly important to that brand. And the plug-in Mini hybrid Countryman has been doing okay. The all-electric Mini Cooper SE is a good car, not the cheapest for the range you get, but you are getting a lot of style. And if you want a Mini, you want a Mini using the older BMW technology, not their 5th gen stuff, which is a shame, but I understand why. Some of the future models coming from Mini will include a small crossover. So the brand called Mini launching a crossover. Well, I suppose the Countryman's a pretty big car. All the Minis are big cars now, in all electric variants. And whilst the parent company BMW have their little catchphrase of the power of choice, in other words, we'll make a car and in the same factory we'll either put in a petrol, a diesel, a hybrid or an electric drivetrain, powertrain, then, which I don't really agree with, but again, not my money that they're spending to do that, so if that's how they have to navigate this transition period, fair enough. Mini saying, actually, that might be the parent company's way of doing it, but there are going to be some cars we launch which are electric only. In other words, some of our cars won't be offered in the choice of petrol or electric. Now, here's a brand you may not have heard of. They're called Triton, and they're a spin-off from Triton Solar, and they've unveiled a render of their idea for a 100% emissions-free all-electric semi-truck, and the truck does exist, I must say. However, the picture I'm looking at is a render, and they say that from beginning to end, they tasked their team with this, and the team put together the prototype in 35 days. Triton's vision is for a hybrid powertrain, and actually it's interesting because when you say hydrogen, what car makers and truck makers normally mean with hydrogen, which is never going to happen, by the way, in passenger cars, it may happen for trucks, and it should happen for planes and boats, and it's a great idea for some things, but it shouldn't happen for personal transport. This is an interesting way of looking at it. Hydrogen normally means hydrogen generator creating electricity to charge a small battery, which is constantly in a charge and discharge cycle. Triton say the way to do it with a truck is a small hydrogen generator and a big battery, so you can dump energy out of the battery quickly if you're hauling a very heavy load, which if you have a big hydrogen generator, you simply can't do. Targeting 300 miles of range, $150,000 price, and good luck to the team doing that. It's something that is at the minute no more than a hey, look what we've got, but interesting to use the hydrogen generator, more of a range extender, actually. I like that. That's interesting way of thinking about it. And the headline story today, the electricity provider that I'm with, they're called Octopus Energy, and they have for a long time now offered a Tesla tariff for people who want that tariff. So a bunch of stories hit the internet today from electric blogs and YouTube bloggers talking about this new product from Tesla in the UK. Well, Octopus have offered a Tesla tariff for months, if not longer. I remember finding it one day on their website and thinking, oh, I have discovered it, and then realising it's been there ages. So I'm trying to work out what this is, and I think I've worked it out, but if you can offer insight and correct me, please do. So the Tesla energy plan in the UK, if I try and decipher this, is specifically a more nuanced version of the existing plan that they've offered for such a long time now through Octopus. They specifically are aiming this plan, this tariff, at homes that have solar and storage, and you don't have to own a Tesla to be on this tariff, which is again different to before. But if you do own a Tesla, you can import your electricity for 8 pence per kilowatt hour, and that is very cheap. If you don't own a Tesla, you import for 11 pence per kilowatt hour, which is still very cheap. But remember, got to have solar and storage. And in terms of the export rates, which are pretty much gone now here in the UK, again, very good rates. If you own a Tesla, you can export excess at 8 pence a kilowatt hour. And if you don't, it's 11 pence a kilowatt hour. Both very, very good rates for exported energy. And like I say, there's been a Tesla energy plan with Octopus for ages now, and it's just never really been marketed, or it's been a very low-profile product, and maybe it's been a trial or in beta, or they've just been sussing out the market. So what is this difference? Well, I think because you add storage specifically into the mix to be on this tariff. So if you have solar and storage, Tesla will manage your home generation by your PV. They'll control the battery, the power wall that you have at home, and therefore they can use their clever software, which is AutoBidder, to create a virtual power plant. And I think that's the difference with this news that is out today. I think it started on the 26th of October, a couple of days ago, and what Tesla will do, and Octopus, the provider, will do, they will drain power from your power wall when the time of day when the grid is at peak demand. They'll only go down to 20% of your power wall, but then they will recharge it either from your solar or from the grid when it's cheaper and greener. And that may be why, if Tesla are offering this, they had to apply earlier in the year to the UK authorities to have a license to be an electricity generator, because if they are taking power from your power wall and putting it in, selling it into the grid at a high price, because when the grid is expensive, between 4 and 7 p.m, they can sell that electricity for a very high amount of money, and then they can recharge your power wall overnight when it's very, very cheap, very green, and they can make some money on that. But you can't make any money on that because you have a flat rate. So you're either importing and exporting at 8p or importing and exporting at 11p. If you know more, please tell me. I've been through the FAQ and I've been through the Q&A section of the Octopus website today, which is different to last time I looked. This is a specific change to this plan. So, maybe you're even considering being on it, or maybe you have applied already. Let me know. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that I am with Octopus, and if you aren't yet and you would like to start your move to them with £50 free. It's a way of helping me out. If it's for friends who listen to this show. You can move on to an Octopus Energy tariff. You get 50 quid, I get 50 quid if you use the referral link that I'll put in the show notes. It's on the YouTube show notes, it's on the podcast, it's on my Twitter, and it doesn't take long to move. I went to the Agile tariff, so the one that tracks the prices every half hour, because I had smart meters already, and they were the type that work with Octopus, not all do. So I did that, because I can charge the car overnight. Sometimes they pay me to charge the car. Either way, then have a look at their tariffs, and if you do move over, use my link, and it helps us both out. So there you go. A little plug for that. But it does help me on the old friends and family referral. And that's your show for today. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. And thank you for supporting on Patreon as we head towards the end of the month. Amazing to see Patreon continue to grow, and I'm always grateful for your continued financial support. And a daily mention for our premium partners, Phil Roberts of Electric Future. He's someone who does do big solar installs, and he puts power walls in as well. There you go. There's somebody that you could be calling if you fancy getting onto the Octopus tariff with solar and storage. I wonder how quickly Phil can put a power wall in. Well, I'm not sure he does it. It's a big business he runs. Maybe he comes out with the spanners, I don't know. Brad Crosby, thank you, Brad. Avid Technology, Porsche of the Village in Cincinnati, Audi of Cincinnati East, Volvo Cars of Cincinnati East, NationalCarCharging.com and AlohaCharge.com. Derek Riley from the EV Review Ireland YouTube channel, and Richard R. Simons, RSYMONS.co.uk. They are the electric vehicle specialists. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.